Good evening, everyone. It's our delayed Tuesday talks. We switched the date up a little bit because last evening was our the first presidential debate. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had a front row seat to that. Although after watching it, I'm not exactly sure anybody will be watching the other ones, but that's beside the point. I am so excited tonight. I reached out to a good friend, Senator Andy Manar. He is a pivotal role model down in the Senate in Springfield, and I wanted him to come on this evening to talk about education. So welcome, Senator. Thank you so much for coming on this afternoon or this evening and spending a little time with me to educate our viewers on the very important subject of education for our young people. So thank you.
You bet, Joan. Thanks for having me.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself as far as, where you are, what your district is, and some of maybe the committees that you're on, and then we're going to hit right into the big topic of education.
Sure. So again, thanks for reaching out, Joan, and thanks for having me. I never, I guess I should say, seldom pass up a chance to talk about the importance of school funding and the critical choices that the General Assembly has been faced with in years past, where frankly there were swings and misses, and choices that we've made in recent years, which have produced a very good result, not just for kids in schools, but for property taxpayers as well in the state. And then, of course, most importantly, the critical decisions that are coming up in the coming fiscal year and the years to follow. So first, I'll just give you a snapshot and give your viewers a snapshot of the 48th Senate District, which, if you think about, it's kind of an upside down triangle.
Okay.
I represent the state capitol building, so downtown Springfield, and the eastern half of Springfield. I represent about 90% of the city of Decatur to the east. And if you draw a line to roughly north of Edwardsville, which of course is in the Metro East and Madison County, I represent all areas in between those 3 points. I actually live in a small town, Bunker Hill, which is my hometown. I'm actually sitting in my living room right now, a few blocks from where I grew up, down the street. Lived here my whole life, and I'm one of the only people. This doesn't make me better or worse, by the way, but I'm one of the few people in the General Assembly that lives in a rural community, that actually lives in a rural community. Sure. But the district is unique because it's half urban and half rural. There's a sizable African American population in both Springfield and Decatur. So for a downstate, for a central Illinois district, it's diverse. On paper, it could, think about the politics. It could elect a Republican or a Democrat. It's quite tricky from time to time when it comes to major issues that tend to divide people. But, I always go back to the people that I represent in terms of how to make decisions on important topics. And, people expect, whether they're, very conservative Republicans or even Trump Republicans, which coincidentally aren't conservative at all, or liberal Democrats, people expect you to be honest and tell the truth and make educated decisions. And that's what I've tried to stick to, despite the sizable issues that we've had to take up in the past several years in the state Senate. So, there's a blessing in disguise in representing what used to be called a swing district, which are virtually non-existent anymore. But there's blessings there when you get to Springfield, because it can be a tool for consensus building. And I learned that most with the issue that you mentioned, which is school funding reform.
Right. So, Senator, as you know, I am running for state representative of the 71st District. We are in the Northwest region. Part of the district is a little bit of the Quad City areas. And my hometown, Sterling, which is in Whiteside County. And I've been going around, as you know, meeting the constituents, talking about the things that I'm most passionate about, and education is one of my big things that I want to really work hard on. I feel it's the economic driver of every community, and so I want to make sure that my granddaughter, who is in kindergarten, that as she's going through the school system, she's got the best ability, for opportunity to be successful. So I've been getting a lot of questions, people saying, wow, it's great that you want to help education, but how are you going to fund it? And so that's why I reached out to you. I really feel like you are in the position to help me learn a little bit too, but also for those viewing, our education system, and letting people know how we initially were funding schools, and then the changes that you brought forward with a bill that you sponsored and got passed then. And it's the evidence-based formula. So I will let you cue in on that.
Yeah, inherently, what is the overarching problem that we have in the state is our over reliance on property taxes.
Right.
And prior to evidence-based funding, which came in 2017 during the reign of Bruce Rauner, he signed evidence-based funding a matter of weeks after he first vetoed it.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that we face is that we rely too much on property taxes. That's going to take a massive fix, and it's going to take both sides of the aisle working together in order to bring finality to that equation. But I'll start with this example. The years leading up to evidence-based funding being passed into law, the state invested hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in schools, and prioritized that in the state budget. The problem was that it didn't get to the places that needed it the most because the directions in the law sent that money in the state budget arguably to places that didn't need it as much. Who needs it more?
Mm-hmm.
Districts that have higher rates of poverty, districts that have lower property values, which cause them to artificially inflate unnecessarily their tax rates. So it's an upside down equation. So the state has always invested more in schools. There's only been one fiscal year, and that was Bruce Rauner's first year where schools were actually cut. The problem is we were pouring hundreds of millions, billions of dollars into schools over several years, but the law never got it to the places that needed it the most, like your neck of the woods,
Right.
like districts in the Quad Cities areas and the rural areas surrounding the Quad Cities, some of the most underfunded schools. For example, in Representative McCombie's district, she has some of the most underfunded schools in Illinois. And the law prevented those schools from getting that money. So evidence-based funding just turned that upside down.
Mm-hmm.
That we're going to put the most underfunded schools at the front of the line instead of at the back of the line. It does a couple of things. It invests new money in classrooms that are the most underfunded, meaning that districts that have high rates of poverty or low property values now have the help of the state government.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does, beyond just giving kids opportunities that they never had before, is it relieves the pressure on property taxes.
Right.
And it doesn't cause local school boards to look at the state government and say, you know what, you're not a partner with us here, so we're going to have to go to our property taxpayers on our own. Now local school boards see the state government as a partner in funding schools, and they're just not inclined to raise property taxes as much as they otherwise would. The measure, which, coincidentally, your opponent didn't support. I mean, she had
Right.
multiple times to support this, and she just chose not to. Because she let politics take over instead of good policy for the people that she represents. Since that started, property taxes just have not been climbing like they were in the decades leading up to it. And that's evidence that shows that when the state invests in underfunded schools first, property taxes, they just don't go up. That's why we need to do more of it.
Right. And I'm one of Representative McCombie's big arguments about saying no to the evidence-based formula was because she said it was actually going to put more pressure on our local school districts, and that there could be a chance that they would have to either increase property taxes or let go of teachers.
Yeah.
And that just
Oh,
doesn't make any sense. If
no, it doesn't. I actually read her website a few minutes before I got
Mhm.
online, and we started the interview here. And the section of Representative McCombie's website that talks about school funding, came straight from the political consultants and mailers that the Republican Party, especially in downstate, has done for generations.
Mhm.
They love to blame people for problems. They love to tell voters what to be afraid of. They chalk their words full of things that I call "what about isms,"
Right.
that have nothing to do with the question at hand. The facts are pretty simple. The school districts in Illinois, particularly in downstate, in the Quad Cities and the surrounding areas, have benefited tremendously
Mm,
from a bill that she opposed.
right.
And that has helped children, and avenues have been opened, doors have been opened, opportunities have been given to children all across the state, in the furthest reaches of the state, in the smallest school districts that otherwise would have never have come. And when it came time to make a decision, she chose the wrong side. She
Right.
chose the wrong side because of politics.
Mhm.
And I've said time and again, Bruce Rauner's veto of Senate Bill 1, which essentially is the bill that he ended up signing, but he still vetoed the first bill because of politics. He thought he was going to get something out of it
Mhm.
at the expense of children and public education in the state. That was the worst veto in the history of the state of Illinois by any governor, and
Mhm.
he owns that.
Sure.
And downstate Republican legislators who voted against evidence-based funding for schools. That's the worst vote in the history of any downstate lawmaker of either party in the
Right.
state of Illinois.
I agree. You just don't turn your back on kids. So part of the evidence-based formula is the increase of the investment into these areas, like you said, that have a kind of a wonky way of funding their schools, making sure that money gets to those areas. It also includes, if I've read part of it, it includes such things as the size of classrooms as well,
Yep.
the number of paraprofessionals that we should be working towards. I mean, this isn't something that's going to be fixed with just a click of the fingers, but over time, these schools literally have a plan so that the money is there, but also to me, what I see as being very beneficial is that decreasing in the size of the classrooms. My husband is a teacher at Dixon High School, and he's fabulous. But let me tell you, when you have a classroom that has 26 desks in there and 30 kids are enrolled in that period, you know, the options are hoping four of those kids don't show up for the day because you don't have a desk for them. You know, that one-on-one education time with your instructor, with your teacher is so important, and that helps kids to be successful. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's part of this evidence-based formula, the bill as well.
It is, and it gives the state of Illinois a road path, and it gives school districts, a road map. It gives school districts a roadmap individually on what works. And that's why
Mhm.
it's called the evidence-based model or formula, because research and data guide how the money is spent, and it also identifies school districts that can utilize that money to grow student achievement in the shortest amount of time.
Right.
And that, of course, is an underfunded school district. Imagine a system of school funding in any state government where the state budget is stressed, but somehow lawmakers cobble together $200-300 million of new money for public schools in a tight budget. And they all send out press releases claiming credit for that. But lo and behold, when that $200 million actually goes into practice, by virtue of how the law worked and the directions worked, it actually made the system less equitable.
Sure.
So we had a system where lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were taking credit for record, this is my polite criticism of Governor Quinn. And he and I had public spats over this.
Right.
You can take credit for record funding, but if it isn't doing the trick, if it isn't getting the job
Right.
done, you shouldn't take credit for anything. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle would pat themselves on the back about record funding for schools, but it was getting to the wrong places.
Sure.
That's the system we have today is exactly opposite of that. And the system we have today benefits students, it benefits teachers, makes the state a true partner in public education at the local level, and it also benefits property taxpayers tremendously.
Exactly. Well, I was reading a few weeks ago, Senator, about the State Board of Education released new data, and it's a wonderful thing. I was just tickled to read this. But we have seen an increase in our kindergarten readiness for 2 years now running. And could you speak on that? I know that Governor Pritzker, when he ran, he really was focused on making sure that our early childhood development preschools were invested in with monies. And I just have a feeling that this is a direct consequence of actually putting money in to these programs that our young people are, they're improving, and that's what we want.
Yeah, and just to prove to you how fair I am, Joan, I'm gonna offer a compliment to the previous governor.
Okay.
The Obama administration. This is rare, by the way, but
Right.
the Obama administration made early childhood education a priority at the federal level, and Illinois was a partner in that effort. And that was something that Governor Quinn embraced, Governor Rauner embraced when he wasn't, vetoing budgets and sending us into a complete tailspin. And of course, Governor Pritzker spent most of his life as working on early childhood issues, and so that has paid off for kids in Illinois. And Illinois is now a leader in the country in terms of access. Now, I'm going to follow this up with something here, but access to early childhood education, funding, and availability and scope of programs. Now, I just said all those things, recognizing that we still have so many things to do with early childhood education, but the evidence shows that when we invest early in public schools for early childhood education, that pays dividends for years to come. And I think we're now starting to see the fruits of that labor.
That's awesome. And I really look forward to working down in Springfield to make sure that continues. So we have to talk a little bit about this, what the challenges are going to be now from COVID. And, our schools are up and running. There are some schools that are doing kind of a hybrid and things. But as far as the impact of COVID with the economy and everything, where do you see the legislature trying to address this in the most meaningful, less stressful way? I don't know. What's the answer?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the budget that was passed, that didn't garner a single Republican vote, because in the middle of the early weeks of the pandemic, when we were getting a true flavor of what this was going to actually mean for the state, its people, its communities, and our economy, the Republicans decided that they were going to play politics with this vote on a budget rather than work with us under very distressed conditions in Springfield with the clock ticking, which is disappointing, especially in the state Senate,
Right.
which I know more about, obviously, because I'm a member there. But, the state Senate is a bipartisan place, and I was very disappointed in Republicans for not even having a real conversation about our budget. Regardless, I would tell you that many of the things that our Republican colleagues suggested, especially in response to COVID, are contained in this budget, despite the fact that they didn't vote for it.
Hmm.
But the budget is a true response to the needs of the state,
Sure.
um, in terms of a public health response, in terms of an economic response to the crisis that we're facing.
Right.
It's not a perfect document, and it was put together under some very, very uh, difficult and challenging circumstances. But if you sift through what it is and what it isn't, it is truly a response to the economic crisis we're facing and the public health crisis that we're facing today. Having said that, and I know you've heard this, Joan, knocking on doors when you go out and talk to voters, but COVID has exposed in many ways problems that have existed for a very long time in our
Right.
state, in our country, in our society. And it's my hope that that will help focus policymakers to do things that are long, long overdue.
Right.
Equity in public schools, for example. When you layer on COVID, when you layer on a global pandemic over inequity in public schools, or you get some really, really troubling circumstances for
Sure.
kids. And it's going to require all of us to pull together, to put
Hmm.
partisan differences aside in Springfield, and come together to truly tackle these issues once and for all.
Sure. Sure. I'm supposed to ask, we have a question, Senator Manar. What is the impact working with the Capitol bill on infrastructure in a district like the 71st?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is something that hasn't been talked about. COVID has taken over, but one of the bipartisan successes of Governor Pritzker's first year was passing the Rebuild Illinois plan. It's more important. I might get heckled for this, but I'll just say it's more important for districts like mine and districts like the one that you're going to represent, because so much of our economy relies heavily on the movement of goods and services and
Yes.
people with our road system. That was a tough vote. That was a tough vote because you have to fund.
Right.
You have to fund these things, right? They put people to work. They're
Hmm.
long-term investments in communities that desperately need investment. Um, but those are the types of things we have to do to be a leader in the country and to make sure that our rural economies grow in
Sure.
Illinois. So it's critically important. There's obviously been some pause to
Mhm.
some degree in the bill because of COVID and declining revenues. But we have it in place, and it is a
Right.
sound piece of public policy. And that investment in downstate districts, particularly, is going to pay dividends in terms of employment, in terms of job growth, in terms of economic growth for years to come. And
Sure.
that's why I supported it.
That's great. And I would have supported it too. My opponent didn't support it, unfortunately. I don't know why she doesn't want to grow the district and to uh, improve the quality of life here in the 71st. But
Yeah.
that is my intent.
Can I just throw this in there? I'm not
Sure.
surprised by that. I hate to say it. I'm not surprised by it, because too often, and this happens with downstate Republicans, particularly in the House of Representatives.
Mhm.
Politics leads the decision making. So I don't discount for a second. That's a tough vote, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough vote to
Sure.
raise motor fuel taxes, despite the fact I was in high school the last time motor fuel taxes were
Right.
raised in Illinois. Now my daughter is. So it's been a
Hmm.
generation, but it's still a tough vote. But at the end of the day, you're not doing a service to the people of the state if you can recognize a major problem. In this case,
Hmm.
our roads stink and it's
Right.
impacting our economy. If,
Hmm.
if you can't, if you can recognize a problem and not offer a solution and then stand up and be accountable for the solution
Sure.
that you support, see that all too often, especially with the downstate Republicans in the House. And too often politics takes over, self-preservation takes over, instead of making tough, principled decisions for the people that you represent.
Exactly. And, when I'm down in Springfield and I have to take that tough vote, I'm going to educate the voters on why the decision was made. And my goal and what I've been telling people as I go door to door is that I'm down there to bring opportunity, and I'm going to vote based on what is the greater good for the district. And
Yeah.
so if you think about, I think about this area, the state of Illinois, this district is our home, and your home is something that you invest in, that you value, because it provides security, stability, all those things that we want in our lives. And, you know, just a little funny part is my opponent's background is in real estate. And I don't know about you, Senator, but if you've ever bought a home, your real estate agent comes in and she or he offers a lot of ideas about curb appeal and getting those, getting the right people to come into the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
as far as, the buyers and things. So I think about the fact that we hadn't been able to invest in our roads and bridges for so long, and things are crumbling. And like you said, it was affecting our economy. We have to invest in those things, and it does take money, but what you reap from that is far better. And to me, it attracts businesses. They're going to come in and see, wow, the state of Illinois is really serious about investing in their communities. Let's put some roots down here and let's employ some people, and they'll bring families here, and those families will put their roots down, and we're gonna grow the district.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
No doubt
that's how
about
I
it.
feel.
Yep. No doubt about it.
So we've got a comment here from Leroy. He says that transparency is wonderful. It builds trust. And I think,
Yeah.
Senator, you've been very transparent and very open with the facts in the state of what's going on in education. I very much appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, Senator will be with us for just another minute or so. Um, Thank you so much. It's just been
Sure.
a great opportunity. It's so important that the viewers out there, please know that Senator is working so hard for education, and I will be on the flip side in the House doing the very same thing, because I truly believe it's my passion to make sure that our young people have those opportunities to, it's a very competitive world out there. We want to make
It
sure they
is.
have all the tools in their toolbox. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, we don't have any questions, Senator, so I'm going to go let you
Okay.
have your night now to yourself. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate your time. And
You bet, Joan. And I appreciate your invitation to talk. And I'll just close by saying this. We desperately need strong downstate voices in the General Assembly. We need people who are willing to stand up and do the right thing, so that we can grow our economy. And that's desperately needed today. And I appreciate the fact that you've stepped out and made yourself a candidate and put yourself in the middle of this. And I know that you'll represent the district well. So thanks for having me on tonight.
thank you. Thank you so much. You take care. Stay safe. Stay well. Okay.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.